We are happy to be joined today by Jerod Johnson from CData, the Senior Technology Evangelist. And I am Brian Parish. I'm the CEO and founder of IData, so serve as the Chief Product Officer. And we're going to talk about how IData and CData partner together to help simply expand the set of data systems that you can connect for the data catalog features of the Data Cookbook through our standard JDBC connection today. And Jerod's going to talk about sort of what a little bit background on their company, how their technology works, and how you can connect almost any system that you have with this method in a very standard format. The Data Cookbook is a full data intelligence solution that covers the ability to manage a data governance framework for the sort of human curation activities around your data, as well as a data intelligence data catalog content that includes a whole bunch of different types of information that you can track around your data, including three things that are taking great advantage of automated synchronization and ingestion directly from your various data systems. And that's the data system catalog, the actual data model information, your tables, your columns, your stored procs, all those types of things. Reference data, so list of code values and kind of tracking, here's all of our employee statuses, and did someone add a status and change a status, and keeping those synchronized. And then data quality monitoring, list of all customers that have a positive account, and whatever your rules might be, and get a count of those and assessments. And all of these are done in our system through direct connection to those data systems through sort of query-based functionality using JDBC drivers. So the architecture of our solution is we've got a software as a service application out in the cloud that has a bunch of APIs for loading in this information about data system metadata, reference data, data quality monitoring assessments to push that into the system. We have a middleware component that our customers, from a secure architecture our considerations, will install somewhere within their network, either in the cloud or on-prem or whatever. It's a single tenant component that talks to the cookbook, figures out like what systems there are and everything, brings that information into the cookbook, and then an admin in the cookbook configures that to connect to the various data systems that are defined in the Data Cookbook. And that connection, these connections happen with a JDBC query, either doing a metadata query, hitting sort of metadata tables, or doing more data queries for things like data quality, assessment counts, or reference data polls. And either again on-prem or in the cloud, doesn't really matter as long as that network connection. So if you are an admin and you've set up something like you're connecting to an Oracle system or a SQL Server system or a MySQL system or a Snowflake system or a bunch of these things that have native JDBC drivers, that's a relatively simple process. You pull that in, you go and configure the credentials and the path to those systems, and then it just set up the frequency of the run, and it'll push that up automatically. And so our architecture here, we've got this within the hub, the Data Cookbook connector that knows how to talk to the Cookbook APIs, and then our JDBC connector that knows how to talk to any data system that's got a native JDBC driver. We also have, we can build a custom connector if that's something you're interested in for sort of weird non-compliant ODBC systems, or non-ODBC or JDBC systems. We have a special colleague connector, which is something that a lot of our customers had. But there's a bunch of things out here kind of in the gray, like a growing amount of software as a service applications or cloud-based applications that only allow API-based connections that don't support direct query. So with a lot of our customers, Salesforce is a big need, Workday is a big need, sort of NoSQL type data or any other sort of non-JDBC compliant system. So those, historically what we had to do we were looking at building our own, like we did for this colleague connector, or our customers were having to do sort of bulk exports and imports into a standard format. And then that's, a couple years ago, we stumbled upon or, found a industry leading, which is maybe a better way to describe that, organization called CData that takes things like this, these vendors that don't have native JDBC support, and puts in between them the ability to have a third-party, driver that sets between the API layers or the non-relational formats of these and represents them back up to your catalog as that. So you can do all the same types of queries and everything, and it really simplifies that process. So we decided to, we had several conversations with them, and it's been a great company to work with, and they've offered significant pricing discounts for our customers on adding these driver catalogs. And as many of you know, we are really focused on having an affordable, pragmatic solution, particularly with all the work that we do in the public sector, nonprofit environment. So the pricing is really important, and CData has worked with us to really offer great pricing on this as a low-cost add onto this. So that's where we are. And then our team worked to adjust our JDBC connections to tailor it to some of the specific connection details and configuration features that they have for their drivers. So that's we have new versions of a connector option that's specific to CData that still uses JDBC, but understands how to talk to their dialect very well. So that's where we are. That's added for us several hundred new data systems. So there's a bunch of slides here. I think Jerod's going to talk about some as well. But some of the high points are things like a HubSpot or a SurveyMonkey or SAP Concur or Workday, as we mentioned, or Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. So maybe you're someone who was on Microsoft Dynamics historically that allowed direct access, but now they're sort of not letting you do that. And then kind of very interesting things like a Slack or a Google Drive or straight Excel documents and all sorts of different things. So it's an exciting time. And I will end my discussion here and hand it over to Jerod to pick it up and tell their story and expand on all the things that we've said about them. So thank you, Jerod, and just let me know when you want to move forward with the slides.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So so my name is Jerod Johnson. I'm a technology evangelist with CData Software. I've been with the company for just over 9 years. I've worked my way from support engineer through software engineer, and now I am a technology evangelist. So I've got a pretty broad technical knowledge of how the products work, but now I get to create technical content, participate in partner webinars, go to trade shows, and just tell the CData story to anyone that's willing to listen. So thanks for having me, and thanks to the attendees for joining today, and anyone that's listening to the recorded session later. CData Software is a company that has been around in its current iteration for a little over 9 years as well, but our roots go back to the 90s. So we have roots in software connectivity, low-level protocol layer software libraries that allow people to do HTTP and SSL and SSH and all of these low-level requirements. But we saw this need for connectivity for enterprises, for developers and data scientists to things that were not typically available from standards. So we're now at a place where we're over 200 employees. We have 9,000 active customers, over 100 OEM partners. So these are companies that are embedding our solutions within their own solutions to provide a better experience for their customers in a seamless way. And we're a global company, so we have offices around the world. And what we offer for Data Cookbook is our JDBC driver. So Brian already talked about this to a little bit, to a degree, but our JDBC drivers are going to provide standards-based SQL access to data. So in the same way that you're used to using a JDBC driver to talk to MySQL or SQL Server or Snowflake or any of these other relational sources, we have created the same technology, but for things that have APIs. And so we basically created a SQL wrapper around an API. So you're able to use all of the familiar SQL operations that you're used to using and tools are used to using with data sources that are not relational. So we have over 100 tested integrations with BI tools, ETL tools, reporting tools, data governance tools, data cataloging tools. These are all tested and documented. We have documentation about these integrations that's regularly updated. And we're now supporting more than 200 data sources through these JDBC drivers. So again, you're getting that standard connectivity to things that are not databases. And so before I dig in to how that works, I do want to talk about who our current customers are. So we serve customers across a wide variety of verticals, whether that's somebody in financial services or healthcare or retail, and it could be any level of customer. So we have customers that may buy a single license to be able to work with their accounting data in Excel, or we have Fortune 500 companies like Tableau that are customers of ours, where they take our JDBC drivers and embed them in their solution. So now Tableau is able to build visualizations on top of hundreds of data sources that they didn't support before. And so now we're a trusted partner with these large ubiquitous companies, providing connectivity to anyone that needs it, really. And we partner with data sources as well. So, we'll work with data sources like Workday, like Couchbase, like Oracle database, in order to refine and provide the best connectivity that we can for the data sources that we partner with as well. So if you want to go ahead and jump to the next slide. So Brian kind of flashed a bunch, overwhelmed everyone with a bunch of logos. So not only are our customers spread across a wide variety of verticals, but the data sources that we support, so the technology that we allow customers to access is spread across a wide variety of verticals as well. So you could be working with your marketing data, whether that's in Oracle Eloqua or HubSpot, collaboration data. So if you're working in SharePoint or Teams or your Office 365 data that's hosted in the cloud, now you have access to your Excel online spreadsheets from the tools that you already want to use to do data governance, data cataloging. CRMs, e-commerce, accounting. This is a big one for us. There are a lot of accountants that want to be able to work with their data in Excel, but they don't want to deal with the API integration. So our products provide a direct connection between Excel spreadsheets and the accounting platforms that accountants are using. I think probably the more popular data sources, Salesforce is probably our most popular data source. It is widely used across a ton of industries. So, we as CData, we are Salesforce customers ourselves, but the reporting and the cataloging and the governance options that are available within Salesforce are not always exactly what organizations need. And that's what our JDBC drivers provide, is access to the data behind the systems that we're using from the tools that we want to use to catalog that data, to govern that data, to visualize that data. And then Workday is another data source that we provide support for, and it's another popular one. We have a strong partnership with Workday, so we're able to stay on the bleeding edge of their development. So as they add functionality to their platform, whether that's the ability to customize queries or rapidly get results in ways that weren't available before, we're working in lockstep with them to implement that functionality within our own connectivity solutions as well. So no matter where your data is, we allow you to connect, integrate, and automate with it using the tools that you already want to use. So there's no reason for you to adopt a new tool or learn how to use a new tool. So that's kind of the data sources that we connect to. I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about the JDBC security. And this is a big issue for a lot of our customers. They want to know that they're connecting securely. The first big point is that our JDBC drivers are installed. It's a software, it's not a service. So you have full control over where the connector is installed, where it's hosted. And that means that the data is going to pass directly between the client application for you, Data Cookbook, and the source, so Workday. So it's never passing through a CData server. We're not hosting any of your data anywhere. And so that provides automatic compliance with a lot of the different security protocols and privacy protocols that are in place, and allows you to easily pass those requirements, any of those requirements that your organization may have or your own customers may have. Data is encrypted across the wire. So when you're working with your Workday data in Data Cookbook, as you request data, it is encrypted across the wire using whatever level of encryption is available in the API. So if you're working with Workday, it supports the highest level of SSL encryption, and we support that as well. When it comes to authenticating with data sources, We support a variety of authentication schemes. OAuth is probably the most popular one. And OAuth, for anyone that isn't familiar, is simply the process of authenticating with the service that you're working with. So when you go to connect to your Salesforce instance, you don't have to save your Salesforce credentials on your machine. Our software library will open your browser. You will log into Salesforce using your credentials, logging in directly with Salesforce, and then our driver communicates with the Salesforce platform to authenticate and then hold those authentication keys so that you can get continuous access to your data. And for any data sources that don't support OAuth, where you would have to use your credentials when you define the connection, that's managed on the client machine or system. So again, you're not storing any credentials on any CData servers. Your credentials are being stored on your own machine or on your own client system, so that you know that you have secure access to your data. You're not giving CData any information or transferring any data to CData directly. So with the security out of the way, I do want to talk a little bit about the implementation for anyone that's interested. So we're modeling our data access through SQL, JDBC drivers. It's a technology that's been around since the 90s. It's Java database connectivity for anyone that doesn't know. It's designed to help users connect to databases from Java applications and Java-based applications. We've taken that same technology and we've simply put it on top of APIs. And the way that this works itself out is, we create a relational model of something that isn't relational. So in the case of Salesforce, we're taking the objects and collections that exist and making them look like tables and views. So anything that has read and write access gets treated like a database table. Anything that has read-only access gets treated like a database view. Individual elements within those, quote, tables correspond to a row in the table. So each account is represented by a single row. You can drill down into things. So there are sub-collections. So if you have orders and order line items, those relationships are maintained. So you have an idea of which order line item is related to which order. And each of those line items also represents a row in that specific table. And then, for anyone that's doing more than reading, CRUD operations are translated to SQL statements. So if you are trying to update some data or delete an account or insert a new invoice, all of that is done through SQL using the select, insert, update, and delete statements. And then for a lot of our data sources, there are operations and functions around the service that is provided by that data source. So whether that's generating a report, sending an email, it could be claiming a bill or issuing an invoice or downloading a report. All of these operations and functions are going to be implemented with SQL stored procedures. So you would call a stored procedure to then be able to do that activity. And as far as the system that you're working with is concerned, it is calling a stored procedure on a database, but on the back end, it is doing whatever action or function that service or system supports. And so, that gives it's a kind of a broad overview. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, and you'll get support through CData as you work with the CData drivers in your Data Cookbook. But we're happy to be partners, and we look forward to continuing to work with this relationship. And so with that, Brian, I'll turn things back over to you.
Thank you, Jerod. That was great. So one of the things about CData that we thought made a perfect match for us is that our system has two different needs for connecting to these data systems. We have a metadata ingestion where we're looking at what are the tables, what are the columns, what are the primary key, foreign key relationships, all those types of things. And as Jerod was just describing, that their system can represent these non-relational databases in that structure. So you can ingest this information in a way into your data catalog to really understand how all the business objects work together from a metadata and data model structure. Additionally, they also support straight up queries, which we use heavily for the data quality components and other things. So it's great that they had those metadata components as part of the solution. Also, I want to compliment them because they're not sort of resting on their laurels with 200 data systems. Like they're constantly adding new systems, and I think they're very smart about how they're doing that. If you remember back on their side, they had a sort of a protocol thing. So they're supporting things like OData and JSON. So I know there's a number of clients that we have who have purchased SaaS ERP systems that provide OData API access, right? And so you don't have to, and those types of things, you don't have to look at individual drivers for all those particular vendors because they support a standard, web service query standpoint that CData supports. So we're excited about the kind of, not just what they can help us with today, but how the solution is going to continue to help us and our customers for the long run as they continue to grow with their number of supported systems. So if you have the cookbook now, or if you get the cookbook in the future, how would you set up one of these API-based systems in our integration? So we have a middleware component, as I mentioned, that sits in between the two, the cookbook and your various data systems out there. One of the first things that you're going to do if you are a current client is that reach out to us if you don't already have the CData library as part of your license, and contact us through support or contact your account rep and let us know, and we'll work with you to add the library. The way that our license works is with CData is you get a license that for unlimited set of their drivers, you could use 1 to all 200 of their different connectors on the hub servers, both test and prod, at an annual subscription, a low annual subscription price. So talk to us and let us know if you're interested, and we will work with you on that. Once you get that loaded, you do need to be on a more recent version. So if you've been on the hub for a while and haven't bothered to update your middleware connection piece, we want to update that driver. It's relatively simple. If you have any more questions, you can go to support, and that'll bring in our CData selection option for drivers as well. And then you can go explore at CData's site or on our site and see which one of the systems you might have that there are drivers for, and then you will log into your Data Cookbook IData Hub download site and just download those drivers. We don't have all 200 of them on there yet. We're sort of on demand. If there's one that you want that we haven't yet put out there, just let us know and we will package that up, because we're not just directly handing off the driver to you. We're wrapping it in some of our own kind of metadata and scripts and OEM license, so that when it gets delivered into the hub, there's things sort of already packaged around that. So we're kind of on demand adding those for the long tail of things, but many of the ones that you're probably looking for are there, but just let us know if you don't see the ones you want, and we'll bring that in. Then you're going to go into the cookbook and set this up. So if you haven't already, you may have, so this is in the cookbook, I'm looking at the data catalog. This is the data system inventory, so all the different data systems that you have. This is our training environment. So here I've got Salesforce set up. If I sort of click down into this, I'll see that it's marked as enabled for integration, and the frequency is set to manual. You might have it as weekly or monthly or daily or whatever. But this is saying that, hey, this is something, that data system is called Salesforce CRM. It is, and I want it to be integrated. So once you've done that, when you go into your hub, which is the middleware that you have an admin that goes into this, they will go to their data systems configuration menu, and you'll see all of the things, all the data systems that you've got set up in the cookbook. And now we see Salesforce here. And then when you pull this up, you're going to set up your connection details. So one of the first things you want to do here is to get your connection credentials from your internal data systems owner. So this may be a little bit of second bullet before first bullet, because it is, you want to look a little bit on what type of credential you need based on the APIs. Likely your data system owner will know that, because it's going to use sort of standard API connections, but you'll need to get the credentials. Now for our needs, it's just query only. So depending on how they're creating those credentials, we don't need updates. For other CData needs, as Jerod was just describing, you can do updates. We're not doing that right now with our system because it's just sort of the governance components of it. Once you get those credentials, then you go back in the application. Now, before, if you were editing it, you would maybe go to just a regular JDBC connection, which looks very similar to this. There's sort of one extra thing. You're going to set up your credential for metadata connectivity and a credential for query connectivity, and then set up your connection parameter. So for each of the different API-based connections that CData has, they provide documentation for what are kind of the unique connection strings or the connection parameters that are particular to that system. So, if the SAP Concur application, requires, some different configuration than Salesforce does, then you can set up that option. Now, Salesforce, when you do this, really, we're going to be passing in the username and password, and we'll generate that. But the only additional thing that you need to add for this is a security token, right? And that's in the documentation. So I'll show you how you sort of find that out here. So if you go to the CData documentation, there's the list of JDBC drivers, and you click on the Salesforce, and it's going to pull up the information about their Salesforce driver, and they've got an excellent docs section. You click on that, and that'll take you down into a whole bunch of different docs. You're going to look at the JDBC driver documentation, go into online docs, and then you'll see a whole bunch of rich information. Now, all we're worried about right now is just getting started. So you go to using JDBC, you go to connecting from code, and then it's going to describe what your sort of connection details are that you need there. And we will help you through this, and we've got our own additional documentation on it. But the point is, as CData goes through and maybe is adding some additional connection strings because people have changed things or other parameters that you can do, you can find this all in their online documentation. Because ultimately what we're doing is that we're passing off to CData this connection string, and any kind of parameters that you want to add, you can add them here. And we're going to continue to evolve our configurations to more continue to closely align with how CData is doing things and make it easier and easier. But right now it's just still very simple just to add that extra string. So as I mentioned, you set that up. You can then have the quality rules and data model components set up as well, and then it will work to pull that information into the cookbook at whatever frequency that you've got set. And it's just, from our perspective with this partnership, we don't have to worry about you have Oracle or SQL Server or MySQL and then something different, like all these other different things, these API-based things from the Data Cookbook perspective, from you as a customer. The Data Cookbook works the same way that those other systems do with a query-based infrastructure, thanks to CData's awesome driver set.